When Mavis came to me that cold November morning and asked me to write a foreword for her upcoming collection of short stories, I looked at her and said, "Why, Mavie, what's a foreword?" She just laughed, stroked her cheek and said, "Oh, David, you'll think of something. You always do." I'd never met her before, neither had she met me. We were both wearing name tags. I'd been sitting in a cafe in the wonderful traditional market of Winsford. I placed my weekly essentials under the table in a blue plastic bag. A Nokia 3210 phone case with a picture of a wolf on it, a steal at just £5. A bag of dripping wet rancid peaches, 8 for £8. And a jumbo pack of multicoloured pipe cleaners, 8,000 for £8,000. There I sat under the warm glow of the halogen heater. It was propped up gently against a pork pie, its fourth leg having long since rusted through and fallen off. I found myself nervously sweating. How can I justify another splurge like this, I muttered to myself. I contemplated the conversation I would have to have with my bank manager later that day. The pipe cleaner shouldn't be an issue. I'll just take my pipe down to the branch later. It is filthy after all. No, that shouldn't be an issue. I smiled and took a sip of my coffee. I choked slightly on a lump of yoghurt. Or was it cheese? I picked it out and placed it on the table for later at the bank. It's those goddamn pizzas. Shit! He's gonna cut me off again. Fuck! I looked up and realised I'd sworn out loud. An old woman in a beige tracksuit had collapsed. Her husband was giving her mouth-to-mouth with a nearby pair of fireplace bellows. "Filthy mouth buffoon," he whispered over his jumpsuit-clad shoulder, spitting curry sauce the colour of baby shit all over it, ruining its perfect white finish. "Sorry," I sighed, turning the page on my newspaper. I decided to put on my cassette Walkman to drown out the sounds of ambulances, the gentle crying, and the wailing sobs of despair. Now that phone case. I turned the page on my newspaper, the Winsford Gazette, to the job section. Wanted. Nobody ever. Don't call us. 0800 426 1287. Diarrhea taster. Meets national minimum wage. Sheesh. I bet that went in a heartbeat. I looked up and saw someone staring at me. A woman, I think. She was dressed in a red carpet. A thick stripe of duct tape was wrapped around it. The carpet ran down to the ground where only a glimpse of her bare feet could be seen. She had cut 2 holes in the sides for her arms, which were sticking out gracefully. They were waving about madly, emoting. In her left hand she held a roll of yellow toilet paper very, very, very tightly. Her left hand was purple from applying the pressure. I looked up further to see her face. She had the complexion of boiled cabbage. She was dark green. My jaw dropped. She had no hair, no ears, one mad blue eye that appeared to be blind. It darted wildly around in its socket. Her nose was perfect. I noticed her face was quite unstill. Her mouth was flapping wildly, and she appeared to be speaking at an insane level of volume. It also appeared she had begun speaking long before I looked up at her. I took off my oversized headphones. My music was drowned out by the fresh din of the cafe. I was struck aurally by the shrillness of her voice. My ears immediately saw. Shut up! I love Mike, but he never mentioned it. Anyway, I thought you could write me a foreword, David. She flung the yellow roll in my face, hitting me in the mouth. How did you... I looked down and remembered the name tag. I noticed her name tag had been crudely pinned to her flabby beige forearm, which made it difficult to read as she had not stopped flailing her arms around this whole time. Mavis? She stopped speaking. Her singular blind eye darted to meet mine. An icy chill crept up my spine. Coincidentally, the halogen heater had been unplugged and moved over to the old woman, who was now dying on the other side of the cafe. Paramedics were lifting her up on a stretcher. Her husband poured the last of his curry into a water bottle before he followed them out. He gave me one last cold look before he disappeared. I looked back to my new friend and noticed that her eye hadn't moved from me. Her mouth was paused mid-word. She suddenly sprang back to life. I know you're a writer, and I loved your first book. She stopped again, this time to await my response. Well, Mavis, I began, but became distracted by the roll of frankly shit-stained toilet paper that now sat on my side plate next to my bread roll. I'd love to, but I began to rack my brain for an excuse. Anything at all. 4 or 5 whole minutes passed and the tension became unbearable. She lunged towards me. I fell off my seat. Why, maybe. What's a foreword? She stroked my cheek. Her hand was soaking wet. She spoke in a much softer, almost seductive tone now. Oh, David, you'll think of something. You always do. I grimaced until my face hurt. See you tomorrow. Same place. I felt nauseous. Nauseous. Off she went, bounding through the market. She fell at the exit, knocking over the peach stand.
My peaches!
I heard the old man shriek, my forward, forward. What the fuck, Mavis?